Hi guys, it's Dylan from Bijou Diamond Jewellery in London with another watch video, and today we're taking a look at the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Chronograph, and this is the first edition, reference 25860. Okay, so as with all my reviews, let's go back in time now and look at the history of this watch. I'm going to touch briefly on the history of the Royal Oak itself as well, but lots of people have complained that they don't like the fact that I include the history of a watch, in every single video. Well, the reason is because that might be someone's first video they've ever seen on the channel, and so it's important for them to know about the history of that specific watch. I know subscribers that come back and watch our videos every week. I'm sure it's maybe a bit boring for you to hear the same thing again, but please just skip ahead until the rest of the video. But this one, if you want to learn the real in-depth history of the Royal Oak, then please go and check out my extra thin review, and that will look much more in depth at how the Royal Oak was introduced into the collection. I'll talk briefly about it now, but again, if you want to skip this, then go ahead. So the Royal Oak was released in 1972, but we're going to skip back to 1969, which is when Seiko released the quartz watch, and that really changed the whole Swiss watch industry completely. Brands like Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe really suffered as a result of the introduction of that quartz movement, and the reason being was because it offered a much more affordable, cheaper option for people. It's also far more reliable than mechanical movements, and so people tended to buy the quartz watches, and that meant that sales in the Swiss watch industry were massively down. So in 1972, Audemars Piguet enlisted the help of Gerald Genta, who is a watch designer. Said to him that they needed to create something really special, something completely unique that would bring back some interest into the Swiss watch industry and Audemars Piguet again. And so he created an incredibly unique watch, which was a steel sports watch that was finished to the same standard, if not higher standard, than a dress watch. The level of finishing was so complex that it hadn't really been done before at all. It was incredibly expensive compared to other steel sports watches, kind of 10 times at least for the equivalent watch from other brands like Rolex. So incredibly expensive. In fact, it was more expensive than a lot of dress watches as well. So people couldn't really get their head around why they would pay that much money for steel. There wasn't the value in the actual metal. It was all work that you were paying for. Later on it became accepted and really popular. People saw it actually as an opportunity to have your own one watch collection. The Royal Oak was appropriate really for any occasion. It had those beautiful finishing, those beautiful accents on the watch that made it appropriate for more dressy occasions. An incredible bracelet as well, but it also was steel and sports watch, so it meant you could also wear it casually too. So incredibly popular, but the model we're interested in was released in 1998, a few years later on, and that was this model that we're looking at today, which is the 25860. That was actually the first ever chronograph that AP made in the Royal Oak range. Previous to that, the only sporty variation of the Royal Oak was the Offshore, which was released in 1993. So the reference was 25860. It featured the caliber 2385 movement, which is this exact same movement that we have today in our reference 26331 reference. So the modern day Royal Oak chronographs. So the movement hasn't changed since then. It's a really great movement. It was used in a couple other watches as well. It was based off a different movement from another brand. This model stayed in production for 10 years until 2008, which was when it was replaced by the 26300 reference. That stayed in production for 4 years until 2012 and was replaced by the 26320 reference, which was probably the model that really made the Royal Oak chronograph the most popular, especially the rose gold variations of that watch. That was a really, really popular model on the straps as well. That was probably the most popular chronograph we've had. And now we have the reference 26331, which is also really popular. I think that was released in 2017. Okay, so that concludes some basic history on this watch and the Royal Oak itself as well. Let's go and look at some of the features of this piece. So I'm going to start, as always, with our clasp on this watch. This watch features a very different clasp to what we see on the modern watches today, and also the 26300 reference that replaced this. It kind of has this square, almost Rolex style clasp, fold-over clasp, that is kind of very simple, very it's very light. It's different completely to the Rolex in the fact that it's completely hollowed out. It's almost skeletonized. It is extremely comfortable to wear. It's very low profile. Yeah, I can't fault it at all. It's got this kind of spring-loaded AP logo that connects, snaps it down and secures it into its position, make sure it's safe. It definitely feels solid. They did replace this with an AP logo clasp, like a folding deployment clasp like they have on the Royal Oak range. I don't really have a preference over which strap or which clasp I prefer. Both of them are very good. I probably would say though, however, I much prefer the modern day clasps that Audemars Piguet do for their Royal Oaks. I prefer the fact that the bracelet is completely flat on those models. On this one we have that little tiny bump for where the little spring-loaded deployment bit is, or trigger. On the modern day ones we have twin triggers either side of the clasp, which just feels a bit more secure, and it's also completely low profile as well. Okay, moving on to our bracelet. I mean, what can I say? I always love an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak bracelet. It's one of the most beautiful bracelets in the industry. I'd actually say it is the most beautiful watch bracelet in the industry. It's like jewelry. It's an incredible design, and Gerald Genta is a genius for inventing this. It's not just a bracelet. That's the thing, the difference between this and something like an oyster bracelet from Rolex. An oyster bracelet is purely there to serve a purpose, just to keep the watch on your wrist. There's nothing beautiful about it. There's nothing really elegant about it. It's just a real, purpose-built, utilitarian feeling bracelet. This is like jewelry. Gerald Genta's really thought about the way in which the light shimmers off this watch. It's like a diamond bracelet. Because each of the parts of the bracelet are completely flat, it makes the light shimmer off each individual surface in such a beautiful way. It's like the facets on a diamond. It's absolutely stunning. The bracelet also features these amazing little polished accents along. We've got individual mini plots in between each link to connect the links, and they have polished and brushed surfaces as well. The bracelet is beautifully tapered up into the case, and the whole design of the case and bracelet is just flows together so perfectly. I mean, the bracelet on this watch is slightly different to some of the other models in the Royal Oak range. It is slightly thicker, being a sports watch, having a chronograph. So each link is actually slightly deeper than something like an extra thin, for example, or just a standard Royal Oak. But nonetheless, feels really, really nice. Still the same beautiful effect that you get from all the other models. Moving now up onto our case, we've got two plots that connect our bracelet to our case. Again, continuing that design with that beautiful polished accent, that kind of beveled edge on the edge of the bracelets is continued up onto the case. It's an absolutely beautiful case. I'd actually say it's one of the most perfect watch cases ever made. I absolutely love it in this 39mm case size as well. So yeah, we've got 39mm case size. It's relatively deep, not too deep. It's kind of really nicely in proportion with its case diameter at 39mm, and it wears really, really nicely. We've got our mixture of polished and brushed accents on this case. It's a mostly brushed case, so it's not too shiny and blingy. It's definitely more understated than lots of other cases in the industry. We've got a brushed case with, again, those same polished accents, beveled edges like we see on the bracelet there. We've got some really nice delicate polished accents on our crown and pushers area. The crown is all brushed finish on this watch, and then we've got our bezel with our polished finish and our brushed finish on the top, and our 18 karat white gold screws. You can see really the kind of tinge of yellow on this watch. Because it's a slightly older model, over the years the plating on the white gold starts to wear away, and those screws start to develop a little bit of a yellow patina about them, which is really, really nice. The reason why they make them in white gold, the screws, is it's a nod to the original Royal Oak that was created, the prototype, back in 1971 or 72, that was made in white gold because they didn't have the techniques and machinery to create the watch in steel just yet at that time. The one thing I wish Audemars Piguet put for the Royal Oak chronographs is a clear crystal case back. I think that'd be really nice to be able to see the movement inside, but they've always kept it with a solid steel case back. So yeah, anyway, it doesn't matter, but it's just my little note. I wish they put a clear crystal case back, because lots of the actual standard Royal Oak models feature a clear crystal case back. Moving out onto the dial, we've got such a cool dial. This one's actually quite a unique dial. It's a very, very deep blue, almost like a grey blue, and it's called the Kasparov Dial, based off the chess player Garry Kasparov. He was a chess champion, and Audemars Piguet partnered with him in 1996, and he became an ambassador in 1996, wore a millenary, which was a Kasparov millenary featuring a blue dial. It was a full yellow gold millenary. He was important for the launch of that watch, and he wore it quite famously in different matches and in the press. He also wore this steel Royal Oak chronograph with the same Kasparov blue dial. So it's been nicknamed the Kasparov, this dial. It's not it wasn't named Kasparov by Audemars Piguet. It wasn't a limited edition or anything. It's just because he used to wear these blue dials, and he launched that Kasparov blue dial, this specific tone of blue for Audemars Piguet. So onto the actual dial itself, we've got a beautiful deep blue dial with a petite tapisserie effect on this watch. We've got white hands and also white markers around the edge of the watch. We've got little sub-dials with white markings and white hands as well, and a lovely little date window down at around 4 o'clock, also in white. So it's a really, really beautiful dial, the way they've popped all the details out from that deep blue and made it in white. It makes this watch incredibly legible. It's actually similar to an Omega Moon watch in terms of how legible it is, because those kind of mattes or satin white hands really pop out from that dial so beautifully. Because the dial is relatively small compared to lots of watches these days, it's actually a really great advantage to go for this watch over some of the other models in this 25860 reference because of its legibility. Now, I'd easily say this is one of the most beautiful dials that Audemars Piguet has ever made. I absolutely love this Kasparov dial. Okay, so on to whether or not I would own this watch. So I would 100% own this watch. Probably if I was to own this watch though, I would put it on a rubber strap. Audemars Piguet do a few different strap options for rubber for this watch. You can also buy from them the deployant clasp, the AP logo deployant clasp like they have on the modern day watches to go with your strap. So you can fully kit it out with a rubber strap and completely change the look of this watch. Of course, this watch is beautiful with its bracelet, but because personally I don't really like wearing bracelets, I would go for the rubber strap option. And I think it would look absolutely fantastic on a rubber strap, this watch. If I was looking at this model though, I probably would look at the slightly newer variation of this watch, which was the 26300 reference, released in 2008. I would try and go for one of the later models of them. My favorite dial of those is the Panda dial. But of the 25860, I absolutely love this dial, the Kasparov dial, blue dial, and also the white dial as well. But you can't go wrong with any of the watches in that line, 25860 or 26300. They're absolutely beautiful. And in fact, even the 41mm modern day variations are fantastic watches as well. I think it wears beautifully on my wrist size at 16.5 centimeters. I think you could probably wear this watch with a wrist size from anywhere between 13 centimeters to 20 centimeters. I think it's an incredibly beautiful case size and would suit a massive range of wrists. I honestly think this is one of the nicest watches Audemars Piguet has ever made. It's definitely one of my favorites, and I think it's a real shame that they discontinued the 39mm Royal Oak chronograph, but this year we saw them introduce the 38mm chronograph, so it'll be nice to see how that wears in relation to these older models. Thanks guys for watching. Let us know in the comments what you think of this Royal Oak chronograph. Would you own this watch, or would you own just the standard Royal Oak? That's often a question we get asked by our clients when they're looking at their first Royal Oak. Do they go chronograph or do they go classic time and date? Let us know what other watches you'd like us to review from Audemars Piguet or any other brand. And as always, if you're interested in this watch or any other watch in the Audemars Piguet collection or any other Swiss manufacturer, then don't hesitate to contact us. Our details are in the description, and also at the end of the video. It'd be a pleasure to call this watch or any other watch into stock for you.